All right, settle down. So, Family Guy, Season 20, Episode 9. Sometimes I think about the sheer audacity of putting this show on the air, especially when you look at who's in the director's chair for this one, Dave Iikenberry. This dude has been around the block with Family Guy for ages, doing everything from animation to storyboarding to, well, directing. And you can tell, he's got that vibe where he knows exactly how to push the buttons to get that signature FG weirdness. But then again, sometimes it feels like they're just throwing random crap at the wall to see what sticks. Like this episode, it's a full-blown noir parody, right? And while I love a good throwback, it feels like they really leaned into the style without always having the substance. It's like they got a bunch of old detective movies, watched them all in one sitting, and then immediately started writing this thing. And I'm here to break down every single glorious, confusing, and downright bizarre moment of it. We've got Peter as a private dick, which is, let's be honest, the least surprising thing ever. But the twists and turns this plot takes, you won't see them coming. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll understand why this episode is both a stroke of genius and a complete train wreck, and I'm about to spill all the beans. This episode really makes you wonder about the creative process, doesn't it? Like, did they sit around and say, you know what Quahog needs? More existential dread and Prohibition-era slang? And then everyone just nodded sagely? It's wild. All right, before we dive headfirst into the murky depths of this episode, you know what you gotta do. Hit that subscribe button. Seriously, if you're enjoying this deep dive into the absurdities of animated television, do yourself a favor and join the club. It's like a speakeasy for smart comedy fans, except no password required and you don't have to worry about the feds raiding us. Okay, so on the surface, this episode is all about Peter becoming a private investigator named MacBook Pro. Because of course. It's a classic noir setup with a missing person, shady characters, and a lot of fog. The main plot involves a nun named Sister Megan who goes missing, and her wealthy mother, Hetti Tooth Grace, hires Mac to find her. Sounds straightforward enough for a Family Guy episode, right? Wrong. It quickly devolves into a wild goose chase involving a corrupt cardinal, the mafia, bootlegging, and Hetti's own mysterious past.
Meanwhile, there's this underlying thread about the town's history, touching on the Great Depression and Prohibition, which Peter uses as a springboard for some truly unhinged historical commentary that's, shall we say, loosely based on facts. But what's this episode really about? It's about the illusion of control and the messy, often contradictory nature of morality. The cardinal preaches against alcohol while running a massive illegal booze operation. Hetti hires a detective to find her daughter, but she's clearly not telling him everything. Even Peter, playing Mac, is this hard-boiled detective who's also, Peter. The show seems to be saying that everyone has their secrets and their hypocrisies, and sometimes the most well-intentioned actions lead to the worst outcomes. It's a dark commentary wrapped in a silly parody. Where does this episode sit in the grand tapestry of Season 20? It feels like a bit of a standalone experiment. It's not really pushing any major character arcs forward, and the main plot, while entertaining, doesn't have lasting repercussions for the Griffin family. It's more of a what-if scenario, a chance for the writers to play dress-up in trench coats and fedoras. The writing quality is, well, it's Family Guy. There are moments of absolute brilliance, sharp observational humor, and those signature cutaway gags that hit just right. But then there are other times where the plot feels a little thin, and the jokes rely more on shock value than genuine wit. The pacing is a bit uneven too. Some scenes linger too long, while others feel rushed, especially when they're trying to cram in all those noir tropes. Visually, the episode does a decent job of capturing that noir aesthetic, with shadowy lighting and stylized dialogue. There are a few moments that feel genuinely cinematic, which is a nice change of pace. My personal verdict on this episode? It's a solid, if slightly messy entry. It's fun, it's weird, and it has some laugh-out-loud moments, but it's not going to win any awards for groundbreaking storytelling. It's the kind of episode you enjoy in the moment, but probably won't be rewatching a decade from now. It's a decent experiment, but maybe they should stick to their usual formula more often. Or maybe not. Who knows? That's the beauty of Family Guy, I guess. It keeps you guessing, even if it's just about what bizarre historical figure Peter's going to bring up next. Let's talk about that opening, right? Peter as MacBook Pro, the private dick.
He starts off with this whole thought I'd seen it all monologue, but then immediately launches into a historical tangent about the Great Depression and FDR. It's classic Family Guy. They set up a scene, and then Peter derails it with some random, often offensive, historical deep dive. He's talking about FDR saying, "Nothing to fear but fear itself," which is a legitimate quote, but then Peter adds, "and also bees." Why bees? Because Family Guy. And then he throws in Hitler. Because why not? It's a chaotic intro that perfectly sets the tone for the episode. It's like they're saying, "Welcome to our world, where history class meets a fever dream." And then there's the Prohibition era. Peter, as Mac, offers water or seltzer, which in this parody is the height of coolness because actual drinking was banned. It's a funny little twist on the tropes, showing how rebellious drinking became because it was forbidden. He even throws in that racism was a big thing back then, except for the laundromat, which is a strangely specific and oddly touching detail. It's like, yeah, times were tough, but hey, at least the laundry was always clean. This scene is so quintessentially Family Guy, where they'll tackle serious historical issues, but then undercut it with a ridiculous observation or a mundane detail. The way they frame prohibition as making drinking very cool is spot on for their brand of satire. It's making a point about how human nature rebels against restrictions, but it's delivered with Peter's usual lack of grace. The introduction of MacBook Pro is a whole other level of silliness. Peter unzips himself and then immediately says, "And don't listen." What are we not supposed to listen to? The implication, of course, is that he's a private dick and we shouldn't be hearing his business. It's a cheap, groan-worthy pun that lands exactly how you'd expect it to. The love theme from Chinatown playing in the background is a nice touch, instantly signaling the noir genre they're aiming for. The doorbell ringing, the horns honking, it all adds to the atmosphere they're trying to build, even if the core joke is just a dick pun. His office being in the Cocaine Cola building is another perfect example of their boundary-pushing humor. It's edgy, it's drug-related, and it's meant to be shocking. Then when the client asks what Mac found out, Peter, as Mac, offers him a drink at 8 a.m. This is a classic noir trope, the hard-drinking detective. But here it's amplified to absurdity because it's 8 a.m. It really drives home the idea that this is a parody, exaggerating every single element of the genre for comedic effect. The reveal that the client's wife is having an affair is delivered with such a bluntness, and Mac's response, "I guess she's the maple, but I'm the sap," is peak terrible pun humor. It's the kind of joke that's so bad, it's almost good. The fact that he offers another drink immediately after the bad news just reinforces the detective's coping mechanism, or lack thereof. It's dark, it's depressing, and it's hilarious in its own twisted way. Then we meet Fanny Patbottom, Peter's secretary, and the name alone is a joke that's just begging to be made. Gal Thursday is another old Hollywood term, but paired with Fanny Patbottom, it becomes something else entirely. The joke about her choir practice on Fridays, making her unavailable, is a classic setup for a misunderstanding or an unmet expectation. And then the whole "postpone today's tangling of the Venetian blinds" line, it's so veiled and suggestive, it's almost more absurd because of how awkwardly it's phrased. It's meant to be euphemistic for sex, but it comes out so clunky. And then Lois walks in as Hetti Tooth Grace. She's meant to be the Femme Fatale, the mysterious woman who brings trouble. The visual of Peter fumbling with a tiny hat brim is a nice visual gag that plays into the era's fashion. Hetty's line, "Please have a seat. Do you mind if I don't smoke? I'm afraid I do," is a classic noir exchange, playing with expectations and power dynamics. And Peter's response, "Totally understand. So we're two people in a room at 8:04 a.m. Let me fix you a drink," is just him reverting to his MacBook Pro persona, incapable of breaking character even for a second. Hetty's reason for being there, her daughter, a nun, is missing, is the inciting incident. The fact that she gave her to the church after my husband died in the war adds a layer of tragic backstory, but it's delivered with such detachment that it just feels like more fodder for Peter's cynical detective persona. The whole deal about rent being $2 a month and still owing 50 cents on his car paints a vivid picture of Mac's financial desperation, making him more susceptible to taking on a case he might not be sure about. It's a detail that grounds the parody in a relatable struggle, even if the numbers are comically low. The Cardinal, Cardinal St. Louis, is immediately set up as the potential villain. Peter's interaction with him is classic confrontational detective work.
He barges in, demands information, and uses his gritty detective persona. The Cardinal's reaction, "Calm down, I'm here looking for a nun," followed by Peter's suspicious, "Recognize her?" is a great back and forth that immediately establishes the tension. The Cardinal claiming he doesn't know about the dunking photo unless you see the ground is a hilariously specific detail, showing how even innocent things can be twisted into suspicion in a noir world. His description of Sister Megan wearing giant nun boots and trying to step on squirrels is pure visual comedy, painting a picture of a strangely aggressive nun. Then Mac runs into Red Wiener, the newspaper guy. Red being scared when the newspaper is rolled up is a funny, nonsensical detail that perfectly fits the show's humor. The banter between Mac and Red is another way to deliver exposition about Sister Megan's disappearance. Red's intel about her having a big story and planning to meet at a speakeasy adds another layer to the mystery. A nun at a speakeasy? That's the kind of absurdity that makes this parody work. The cinematic sideways wipe request is a meta joke, acknowledging the filmmaking style of the era. Peter's response, "I did a sideways wipe this morning. I don't recommend it," is a gross-out gag that's perfectly timed and adds to the overall humor of the scene. It's a moment where the show winks at the audience, showing off its awareness of film history while still being crude. Cleveland's appearance at the Sunken Clam, a speakeasy, adds to the mystery. The order for "this period fashions" is a subtle nod to the time setting. Cleveland's feigned ignorance about Sister Megan, followed by his accusation that the cardinal rigged the vote on prohibition, really starts to flesh out the corruption angle. The idea that a cardinal would be involved in rigging votes to ban alcohol only to profit from bootlegging is a deliciously cynical twist. His determination to get to the bottom of it and the introduction of 2 other missing black girls adds a serious undertone to the episode, suggesting that Sister Megan's disappearance might be part of a larger conspiracy. It's a good example of how Family Guy can weave together different plot threads and social commentary, even if it's wrapped in a parody. Peter's visit to the police station and his interaction with Ace Hardware is another classic Family Guy move. The reason for him being kicked off the force, letting horses poop on the street, is so absurdly specific and petty.
It highlights the arbitrary nature of rules and consequences in the show's universe. His buddy, Ace Hardware, is a brilliant, nonsensical cameo that plays on the absurdity of product placement and character cameos. The conversation about synonyms for girl is a callback to the writing process itself, showing the writer's self-awareness and their love for wordplay. The warning from Ace about the cardinal being a heavy hitter and a butter and egg man adds to the sense of danger and reinforces the cardinal's power. The alley scene where Peter is cornered by Bogey and Backhow is a fantastic nod to classic movie rivalries. Their threat to him, reminding him of his smarter days on the force, emphasizes how he's changed or perhaps descended into this noir persona. The fact that they let him go with a warning, but his shadow wasn't so lucky, is a darkly humorous and slightly confusing punchline. It leaves you wondering what happened to his shadow, adding to the surreal nature of the episode. Then, the phone call about American Dad being picked up for 3 more seasons. This is a meta joke that Family Guy often does, referencing other shows or current events. It's a way for the writers to vent their frustrations or make commentary on the industry. The subsequent call about Sister Megan being found, immediately followed by a gunshot, is a classic whodunit twist. The killer shark comment is a bizarre metaphor, but fitting for the show's over-the-top style. The scene where the doctor reveals the DNA results will take 65 years is another hilarious exaggeration of bureaucracy and inefficiency. The camera film hidden in Sister Megan's waistband is the classic clue that will hopefully crack the case. The doctor's awkward admission of losing the film is peak comedic timing. Hetty's lament about being single without a child is a poignant yet still darkly funny moment. Her daughter's death is tragic, but her focus on her own marital prospects and Peter's smooth transition to asking her out is classic Peter Griffin absurdity. The Fudge Packard line and Peter's defensive reaction about it being a dark brown car is a funny character moment. The scene with Fanny at the supper club and her invitation to a miserable spinster party is wonderfully awkward. Peter's excuse of having a vaudeville show is flimsy, but his quick "no, no, 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 no" when Fanny tries to get him to say cream cheese is hilarious. The joke about just cheese working is a simple, silly gag that lands perfectly. Developing the film and finding photos of the cardinal with mobsters is the turning point. The reasoning behind knowing they're mobsters, what other Italians can afford Italian suits, is a ridiculous stereotype, but it's delivered with such confidence that it works. The speculation that Sister Megan discovered this illegal partnership and was killed for it is a logical leap, but again, it's the kind of deductive reasoning we expect from a parody detective. Fanny's reward of a raise and her flustered reaction is a sweet moment amidst the noir grit. The additional photos showing the cardinal with Hetti, that broad, is a shocker. It immediately links Hetti to the cardinal and raises questions about her motives. Peter's reluctance to call Hetti, citing the 3-day rule for dating, is a funny character detail that adds to the parody. The realization that the cardinal is the biggest bootlegger in town and rigged the vote to control the market is a great twist. He wasn't against drinking, he was against competition.
This cynicism is what makes the episode's commentary on morality so effective. The final confrontation with the cardinal in the church bathroom is a brilliant juxtaposition of sacred space and mundane corruption. The mutton joke is a classic Family Guy insult, playing on grossness. Peter's accusation of murder is bold, and the cardinal's reaction, followed by the thudding sound, is ominous. The arrival of Ace Hardware, who is conveniently also at the scene, and the anonymous tip pointing to Peter is a classic frame-up. The ballistics report linking the murder weapon to Peter's gun is the final nail in the coffin, or so it seems. The mention of Andy's candies being stolen and put in Peter's pocket is a bizarrely specific detail that adds to the chaos. The show ends with Peter being arrested, setting up a potential continuation or just leaving the audience hanging. This episode is a really interesting case study in Family Guy's approach to genre parodies. They take the tropes of film noir, the cynical detective, the femme fatale, the shadowy streets, the corrupt officials, and they twist them into something uniquely Family Guy. Peter as MacBook Pro is a perfect example. He's not a slick, world-weary detective. He's Peter, with all his idiotic impulses and inappropriate jokes. The humor comes from the clash between the serious genre conventions and Peter's inherent silliness. The episode's willingness to delve into historical context, even if it's wildly inaccurate and offensive, is also a hallmark of the show.
They use the Great Depression and Prohibition as a backdrop to explore themes of corruption, hypocrisy, and human nature. The writing here is a mixed bag. Some of the dialogue is sharp and witty, especially in the noir-inspired exchanges. The character interactions, like the banter between Mac and Red Wiener, are classic Family Guy. However, the plot can feel a bit convoluted at times, and some of the jokes rely too heavily on shock value. The pacing is also a bit of an issue. The episode tries to pack a lot in, and as a result, some scenes feel rushed while others drag on. Visually, the episode does a commendable job of capturing the noir aesthetic. The shadowy lighting, the trench coats, and the smoky rooms all contribute to the atmosphere. There are moments where the animation feels more cinematic than usual, which is a nice touch. The overall direction is competent, but it doesn't really break any new ground. It serves the story and the jokes, and that's about it. My verdict on this episode? It's a fun, if slightly flawed, parody. It's got some genuinely hilarious moments and a clever concept, but it's not without its weaknesses. It's the kind of episode that fans of the show will likely enjoy, but it's not a game changer. It's a good example of Family Guy's ability to play with genre and offer a unique take on familiar tropes. It's a solid 7.3 out of 10 for me. It's not perfect, but it's certainly entertaining. The one thing that would have pushed it higher? A tighter plot. Sometimes they try to do too much and it ends up feeling a little unfocused. But hey, that's Family Guy for you, always keeping us on our toes. And speaking of keeping us on our toes, remember that director I mentioned at the beginning, Dave Iikenberry? Well, this episode is a perfect example of his work. He clearly has a handle on the show's DNA, but sometimes that DNA gets a little mutated. Like with this noir parody, where the style is on point, but the substance sometimes gets lost in the shadows. It's a wild ride, and it perfectly encapsulates the chaotic, brilliant, and sometimes baffling world of Family Guy. And that, my friends, is a wrap. Let's dive deep into Peter's first moment as MacBook Pro, the private dick. He's standing there, in his office, with that classic film noir narration. He says, "I thought I'd seen it all. But that's the thing about Quahog. You never know what's hiding under the hard shell of a clam." This is immediately funny because it's so over-the-top dramatic for Peter.
He's not exactly known for his profound observations. Then he launches into the Great Depression, FDR, Nothing to Fear But Fear Itself, and then the absolute masterpiece of non-sequitur, and also bees. It's like a comedic landmine. The fact that he follows that with Hitler and then circles back to bees again is pure chaotic genius. It's not just random, it's deliberately random, designed to disorient you and make you laugh at the sheer audacity of the connection. This moment works because it establishes the parody immediately and showcases Peter's unique brand of historical commentary, which is always a twisted mess of facts and absurdity. What it's really saying is that Peter's mind is a cluttered attic where history, personal anxieties, and random animal facts all coexist in a terrifying, hilarious jumble. If I were directing this, I'd add a quick cutaway right after the bees line to a literal giant bee chasing FDR, just for that extra layer of visual absurdity. But Peter's personal reaction to this moment is one of utter self-importance. He thinks he's being profound, and that delusion is part of the humor. It's a character moment that highlights his inflated ego and his detachment from reality. Then there's the whole prohibition bit. Peter, as Mac, offers water or seltzer, anyone? He immediately follows with, which of course meant drinking was very cool and everyone did it all the time. This is a brilliant inversion of the historical reality. During Prohibition, drinking was illegal, and the cool thing was to do it secretly. By framing it as everyone doing it all the time because it was cool, the show is satirizing the idea of rebellion and how Prohibition itself backfired. It's a quick, sharp observation that's also very funny. The transition to, and of course there was racism, a lot of it was horrible, except for the laundromat which served everyone. This is a classic Family Guy move, tackling a serious issue, then hitting you with a bizarre, specific exception that's both funny and slightly off-putting. It's the kind of joke that makes you go, wait, what? The laundromat serving everyone is so mundane, yet it's presented as this beacon of progress in a sea of awfulness. It works because it's unexpected, and it highlights the absurdity of exceptions to rules. It's really exploring the idea that even in the darkest times, there were often strange, specific pockets of normalcy or even progress. It's a commentary on how societal issues are rarely black and white.
As for what I would change, I'd have the laundromat have a really over-the-top, almost magical glow when Peter mentions it, just to emphasize the absurdity of it being the only good thing. Peter's reaction here is that of a cynical detective who's seen it all, but he's still capable of being surprised by the mundane. He's delivering this like it's a serious revelation, which makes the laundromat detail even funnier. The introduction of MacBook Pro, where Peter unzips himself and says, "A very private dick, and don't listen," is a moment that's both crude and, in its own way, effective for the parody. It's a juvenile joke, obviously, but it immediately establishes the tone of the episode and the character. The visual of him unzipping himself as if he's revealing something is pure visual comedy. The phrase, "don't listen," is hilariously vague and just adds to the mystique. This moment works because it's so perfectly in character for Peter to make a penis joke and try to make it sound edgy and mysterious. It's a blatant attempt at humor that relies on shock value and wordplay. It's trying to be a classic noir tough guy line, but it's corrupted by Peter's need for a cheap gag. What it's really saying is that the show isn't afraid to be crass, even when it's trying to be sophisticated. It's a reminder of the show's roots in adult animation pushing boundaries. If I could change one thing, I'd have him accidentally unzip his pants instead of his jacket, leading to a brief, panicked moment of covering himself up, and then he'd deliver the private dick line. That would add an extra layer of physical comedy and underscore his incompetence. Peter's reaction to this moment is pure smugness. He clearly thinks he's the wittiest guy in the room, and the fact that the audience knows it's a cheap joke just makes it funnier. The scene where MacBook Pro offers his client a drink at 8 a.m. is a fantastic character beat. The client is reeling from the news that his wife is having an affair, and Mac, instead of offering comfort, offers a drink. "Now hold on, it's 8 a.m. and we're two men in a room. Let me fix you a drink." It's a classic noir detective trope, the detective who solves problems with alcohol. But the 8 a.m. timing makes it absurd. It emphasizes the bleakness and the unhealthy coping mechanisms of the characters. This moment works because it perfectly captures the cynical, hard-boiled atmosphere of noir while also highlighting Peter's character as Mac.
He's not a good detective. He's just a guy who throws booze at problems. It's a commentary on how people often default to unhealthy coping mechanisms when faced with difficult situations. It's also just funny because it's so inappropriate. My rewrite, Mac should actually pour a tiny shot glass of milk instead of liquor, pretending it's strength for the morning, and then immediately chug it himself, getting tipsy. Peter's reaction is one of professional detachment, or at least his version of it. He sees the client's pain, but his instinct is to offer a drink, not empathy. He's playing the part of the hardened detective, and that means being emotionally distant. The introduction of Fanny Patbottom and her Gal Thursday status, coupled with the scheduling joke, is a masterclass in Family Guy's ability to create awkward and suggestive humor. Her full name, Fanny Patbottom, is already a red flag for jokes, but the line, "She's my gal Thursday, she has choir practice Fridays, she's, not available to me then," is pure gold. It's a thinly veiled innuendo about sexual availability, and the fact that she's unavailable on Fridays because of choir practice is a hilariously specific and innocent excuse that contrasts wildly with the implied meaning. This moment works because it plays on the double entendre and the audience's knowledge of what's being hinted at. It's classic Family Guy. Take a seemingly innocent situation and twist it into something suggestive. It's a commentary on how societal norms and expectations can be interpreted in different ways, and how people often project their own desires onto situations. If I were writing it, I'd have Peter try to use the tangling of the Venetian blinds euphemism, and then have Fanny just look at him blankly and say, "Oh, you mean dusting?" making his entire suggestive setup fall flat. Peter's reaction to Fanny is one of mild annoyance that his secretary has boundaries, especially when it comes to his perceived sexual availability. He's treating her like a tool for his own gratification, which is disturbingly in character. Lois's entrance as Hetti Tooth Grace is pivotal. Peter's reaction: "I'll never forget the day she walked through my door. Ah, damn it, and this was the smallest brim they had," is funny because it's so specific and dismissive. The smallest brim they had is a very odd thing to focus on, and it immediately signals that Hetti is not going to be a straightforward femme fatale. She's going to be a Family Guy femme fatale. Her being the type of girl who really left a mark on you is another classic Noir line. But again, Peter's delivery undercuts it. This moment works because it sets up Hetti as a character who is both alluring and slightly off-kilter, fitting the parody's tone. It's playing with the audience's expectations of what a noir character should be. It's about the disruption of archetypes. If I could change anything, it would be to have Peter try to adjust his own hat as if he's the one with the hat problem, creating a visual gag of him being more concerned with his appearance than hers. Peter's reaction here is one of weary resignation. He sees Lois's trouble, but he's also clearly intrigued. It's that classic Peter Griffin dynamic where he's attracted to danger even when he knows it's going to end badly for him. The scene where Hetti explains her daughter is a nun and she gave her to the church after my husband died in the war is crucial. Frankly, we weren't that close. This line is delivered with such deadpan sincerity that it's hilarious. It's the ultimate noir detachment, but applied to a mother's relationship with her child. The war backstory adds a touch of classic noir melodrama, but it's immediately deflated by her lack of maternal warmth. This moment works because it subverts the audience's expectations of a distraught mother. It's dark humor at its finest, using extreme lack of emotion to create comedy. It's a commentary on how people process grief and relationships in different ways, or perhaps how they're just emotionally stunted. My rewrite: Hetti should pause after "weren't that close," and then say, "she was never very good at playing Monopoly." That would add a layer of mundane, relatable family squabbling to the tragedy. Peter's reaction here is one of professional interest mixed with a touch of surprise. He expects a damsel in distress, but he gets someone surprisingly detached. This detachment makes her more of a mystery, which is exactly what a noir detective needs. The interaction with Cardinal St. Louis is gold. Peter, as Mac, confronts him. "Sorry to bother you about a case, Padre. Do you want to talk here, or should I come inside your rectory?" The Cardinal's response, "Okay, Groucho, calm down," is a great insult, immediately establishing him as someone who's not impressed. Then Mac asks about Sister Megan, and the Cardinal says she runs the church orphanage. When shown a photo, he says, "I don't know. Any dunking photo where you don't see the ground is very suspicious." This is such a specific, nonsensical rule for suspicion.
It's absurdly pedantic and hilarious. The visual of Sister Megan in giant nun boots and trying to step on squirrels is another perfect gag. It makes her seem like this odd, aggressive character, completely unlike the typical image of a nun. This moment works because it's a clash of characters, the hard-boiled detective and the seemingly pious but likely corrupt cardinal. It uses the genre conventions of suspicion and investigation and injects them with pure Family Guy absurdity. It's a commentary on how even in serious settings, silly things can happen, and how people can be completely unhelpful while still sounding official. If I could change one thing, it would be for Cardinal St. Louis to be genuinely terrified and stuttering, but still trying to maintain an air of authority, making his nonsensical pronouncements even funnier. Peter's reaction is one of professional frustration. He's used to people giving him straight answers, and the Cardinal is being evasive and absurd, which clearly irks him. He's not getting the easy answers he wants, and that's part of the challenge. The introduction of Red Wiener, the newspaper guy, is another fun noir trope. Mac asks about Sister Megan, and Red says, "She called me a few days ago and said she had a big story. We were supposed to meet at a speakeasy, but she disappeared before we could get together." The idea of a nun meeting at a speakeasy is inherently funny, and it sets up the mystery further. Red being scared when the newspaper is rolled up is a silly visual gag that fits the show's humor.
This moment works because it adds another piece to the puzzle and introduces a new character who embodies the gritty, informant archetype of noir. It's a way to move the plot forward while also indulging in the genre's stylistic elements. It's about the flow of information and the shadowy underworld of secrets. My rewrite: Red Wiener should actually be holding a newspaper that is unrolled, and he's perfectly fine. But when Mac accidentally nudges it and it rolls up, Red instantly becomes terrified and squeaks. Peter's reaction to Red is one of camaraderie, but also a hint of professional jealousy. He sees Red as a fellow investigator, albeit a more nervous one. He's trying to get information, but he's also enjoying the role play of being a detective in this world. The scene at the Sunken Clam, where Mac and Red meet Cleveland, is a great example of how the show uses its characters in unexpected ways. Cleveland, as the bartender, is in on the speakeasy vibe.
When asked if he's seen Sister Megan, he says, "Doesn't ring a bell." This is classic noir evasion. Then Red drops the bombshell about the cardinal rigging the vote on prohibition. I heard that when the state voted on prohibition, he rigged the vote to get alcohol banned. This is a huge reveal and adds a layer of corruption to the cardinal. It suggests that Sister Megan's disappearance might be connected to this. The mention of 2 other missing black girls adds a serious social commentary element, hinting that this isn't just about one nun. This moment works because it escalates the stakes and introduces a conspiracy. It's no longer just a missing person, it's something bigger. It's a commentary on how power corrupts and how marginalized communities are often affected by systemic issues. If I could change one thing, it would be for Cleveland to, instead of saying "doesn't ring a bell," say "I can't remember anything before 5 p.m., adding a layer of drunken amnesia to his character. Peter's reaction is one of growing suspicion and a determination to uncover the truth. He's not just doing this for money anymore. He's starting to feel like this case is important and that there's a real injustice happening. He's embracing the detective role. Peter visiting Ace Hardware at the police station is a classic callback to his own past failures. The reason he was kicked off the force, letting horses poop on the street, is hilariously specific and nonsensical. It underscores the show's tendency to create absurd scenarios and consequences. Ace Hardware, as a friend on the force, is a surreal cameo that works because it's so out of left field. Ace's advice to Mac: he's a heavy hitter in this town, a big cheese, a head honcho, a real butter and egg man, is a great use of old-timey slang that fits the noir theme. This moment works because it plays on Peter's history and his relationship with authority figures. It's also a way for the show to inject its usual brand of surreal humor into a more grounded setting. It's about the absurdity of the justice system and the characters within it. My rewrite: Ace Hardware should be leaning over the counter, meticulously organizing a display of nuts and bolts, completely oblivious to the gravity of the conversation, only chiming in with hardware-related analogies like, "Yeah, that cardinal sounds like a loose screw." Peter's reaction is one of nostalgia and a grudging respect for his old friend. He's still Peter, but he's trying to tap into that old detective persona, and the interaction with Ace, a reminder of a more legitimate, albeit still silly, past, helps him do that. The alley scene with Bogey and Bacah is a perfect noir moment, but twisted. They corner Mac, saying, "We hear you've been snooping around the disappearance of a nun." Mac's humble, "Well, I didn't mean to ruffle anyone's feathers," is met with 2 oofs, signifying physical blows. They remind him that he used to be smarter than this, that he knew how to play ball before he got kicked off the force. This is a crucial character moment, reminding the audience and Mac of his former potential and his current self-imposed idiocy. This moment works because it's a physical manifestation of the dangers of the noir world and a reflection on Mac.